Hi there. Welcome to the CHGO Sky postgame show. Sky dropped their season opener, but we've got a lot to talk about from that season opener. We're going to get right to it on the other side of this countdown. Sean, hit the button. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the CHGO postgame show. I'm here, Katy Duffy, your host as usual, and my co-host, Stephen Garner. Sean is producing us today from home, but we still have a great show coming up for you. Stephen, tough way to start. Initial thoughts from the loss. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing good. I was hoping to see a better performance from the Sky in their season opener. At the same time, though, my expectations were suppressed some too because this is a relatively brand new team in terms of the integral pieces that they brought in being new to the franchise. And they're going up against a team that has a lot of pieces that have been around already and have spent time. They've gone through a playoff series before. They have a full season of going through things. And although they do have a new coach, they have veteran pieces that they added that have a lot of been there, done that before to their approach to the game, obviously in DeWanna Bonner and Natasha Howard, even Sydney Colson. So expectations for me were suppressed compared to others, but even from my lower expectations, they left a little bit more to be desired, and I feel like a lot of that stems from the offensive side more than it does the defense. I'm curious, what were your initial thoughts? How are you before we even get to that? And I'm looking forward to getting to this conversation post-game.
I'm good. I have a lot of the same feelings as you. Like, defense felt solid. Offense left a whole lot to be desired. We'll get deeper into that. But before we do, I just want to let you all know that today's show is presented by Sunnyside. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions do apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois Med card holders. All right, so let's dive deep into this thing. Defense seemed really solid, as we mentioned. Elizabeth Williams, I specifically thought, looked so good on defense today, which was amazing to see after, her injury last season and, just like everything that she's been through in the last couple of years. So defense to me was strong. What do you think was working for them on the defensive end?
Well, it starts with the activity, and it's that they have front court players that can do multiple things. They're not restricted specifically to being around the basket. Elizabeth Williams can get closer to where Caitlin Clark might be coming off a screen from and deflect the pass, take away a passing window, or at worst, just delay that pass that Caitlin may be trying to make, which allows her then time to recover back to her matchup or for someone else to swarm in from the back line and either switch with her or get a deflection and things like that. And that can be copied and pasted to Camila Cardoso being able to execute in a similar fashion. Obviously, Angel Reese being able to execute in a similar fashion. And though it might not be the same as those 3 names that I mentioned, when Michaela Onyenwere and Rebecca Allen are in the game, they can just flat out switch those type of actions. And all of those different dynamics that all 5 of those players bring to their front court, it brings a type of versatility and activity that this team desperately needs, especially to break up having to go to the offensive end and playing in a half court so exclusively. So I think we start there, and then if you kind of build out from there, they didn't see the defense in pick and roll in particular be as good as they hoped for it to be. I think early on it was decent, and then in that middle 2 quarters they found some slippage. That's naturally what happens when you're going up against someone as great as Caitlin Clark, in tandem with the rollers and the screeners and the activity that they kind of bring together in that action.
Yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of switching, I think. But just overall, I thought a relatively strong performance. Gave up 93 points. I think that could have been way lower, especially when you look at just the amount of points that you scored on the offensive end. But nothing crazy. Nobody scored 40 today. That's something to be proud of and something to, build on going into the next game. you held Caitlin to 20, but you gave up 10 assists from her and 10 rebounds, a triple-double. What did you think about just the way they played Caitlin Clark specifically? Obviously, we know what a dynamic player she is, what a dominant player she is. We know that she can go for those big numbers. So for me personally, I was impressed to see just 20 from her. What did you think about the way that the Sky played her?
Well, that's the thing with Caitlin. Obviously, her shooting takes such a grand stage because it's one of one that we've seen on the women's side of basketball, and only few in the history of basketball as a whole have ever had that type of pressure that she puts on the defense off the threat of her pulling up as soon as she crosses half court. The issues for the Sky, for me, at least off the initial watch, was that it's just so much to account for. You have to account for her coming off, the threat of her shooting, the threat of her making a pass on time, and what that ultimately leads to in the 4-on-3 as you send a double team at her. And the other thing is the counters from Stephanie White, where you kind of get used to seeing pick and rolls around the three-point line. Look at where a lot of the pick and rolls take place when Caitlin Clark has the ball. Now, some of it is in respect to why, because the defense picks her up so high up the court. But the other side is when they decide to set the screens closer to the half-court line, look at how much real estate that 4-on-3 is behind the screen, to where if it's Natasha Howard or Aaliyah Boston or any of the other players that set screens for Caitlin are going downhill, instead of having the free throw line and below, they have like 2 feet above the three-point line and more to kind of work with in space. And when it's a 4-on-3, you only have 3 defenders. You can only be right so many times if they're making quick decisions in that context. And they flip it and they do it in so many different areas of the court. And it's the cadence at which it's happening more than anything else. You can know it's coming, but because they cycle through these things so quick, Caitlin gets off it quick sometimes. Sometimes she holds it for a second, lets the defense settle, and then makes a different pass that might not go directly to the roller. There's just so much to account for when she has the basketball. That's a credit to her. And I thought this guy did a solid job, but when you don't take one specific thing away from her, whether you say, okay, you're going to have to score or you're going to have to be a playmaker, and she kind of can lead things and being able to get both the scoring and the playmaking, it kind of puts you in a little bit of compromise. And it felt like after the first quarter, the rest of the game kind of lent itself to the latter a whole lot more than the former.
Yeah, I like the way you said you can only be right so many times. And I think you just look at how many weapons the Fever have. Like, they hurt the Sky in so many ways today. And it's true, like, you can only stop so many people. You can only double team so many players at once. You can only, do so many things at one time. And unfortunately, it's just, the Sky got beat by a team that had a whole lot of weapons. And they didn't have as many, it looks like, on the offensive end. So let's flip over to that offensive end that we keep alluding to. I have a lot of thoughts.
Oh, real quick, one more quick thing for me though.
Yeah.
Like for as good as the Fever offense was today, and I said I felt comfortable with where the Sky's defense was. Most of the issues that I feel like kind of created the separation that we saw in the final scoreboard total that worked against the Sky is that they gave up 24 points off of turnovers to the Indiana Fever. So if you're minimizing as much as you possibly can with your half-court defense, and I thought their activity was there for the most part, you have to not work against your offense by giving up those points off of turnovers that the Fever really look to eat off of. They love to push the pace, and it's hard to stop them when they're working in the advantage that is transition. So I think if they take away even half of that, and you look at the context of when those turnover points occurred in favor of the Fever over the course of the game, then you can kind of find ways to where, okay, maybe it's like a 9-point game or 8-point game going into the fourth quarter, which feels a world of a difference from what it was going into it. And now the entire landscape of the rest of the game looks completely different. Now they give themselves a chance marginally for their defense to hit where it needs to. And if it's a 5-0 run, 6-0 run, that 8-point deficit that you're at turns into 4 or 5. And it's just like everything looks different there. So I think if they clean up the turnovers, it puts their defense that's going to be top 10 or top 5 in the league, I think, puts it in a position to be more successful. And that then sets the table for their offense.
Yeah, and so many of those turnovers were preventable. Like, there were several turnovers where it was just, people dribbling with the ball, not having the awareness to know that there was a Fever player behind them coming up to pick their pocket. Those are things that you just have to be aware of where everybody is on the court, or at least somebody needs to call out to you and say, hey, there's somebody behind you that's coming to pick your pocket right now. A lot of those are so preventable. I'm with you. I think the final score would have been a lot closer. You would have felt a lot better if those turnovers hadn't been present, or if there had just been fewer of them. 17 turnovers today for the Sky to just 10 for the Fever. I know that doesn't sound like a huge margin, but that's a lot of really preventable turnovers that I think that the Sky need to work on before their next game. That, should be top 3 in things that Tyler Marsh works on in practices.
When you look at them, look at 24-8 in terms of turnover points in tandem with the general turnover numbers, then you see the impact that the turnover discrepancy is. It's only a difference of 7, but the points scored off of both is enough to sway a game completely in favor of one team compared to the other. And then one last thing on the turnovers, I think that when they do a better job, they're still getting it together. But when they do a better job of having their spacing a lot more kind of organized early in the offense, or if someone has the ball and they know that no advantage has been created, they're going to go one-on-one. Moving that space to where a help defender can't peek in like you spoke to a minute ago, where Angel might be trying to go isolation and she gets picked from behind. Why is that defender able to do that? Look at how close that defender is to Angel Reese, and you can kind of find the answers in that. So when they do a better job of just kind of getting to know each other, because, again, it's a brand new team, and kind of figuring out the little things, having some game film to look at with that now even more so, that'll shift. I'm not worried about the turnovers for them. And I think that once they get that part together, we'll see that team that I expect to see by the end of the regular season start to surface piece by piece.
Yeah, I wonder if the pace today played into the turnovers at all, because it was like a breakneck pace at the beginning there. I looked up at Emma, our social media manager, as we were watching the game here, and I'm like, this is incredibly fast. Like, even for a WNBA game where you expect the pace to be quick, incredibly fast paced today. And I wonder if it's faster than what they're used to in practice. I don't remember their pace being that quick in preseason. So I wonder if they were letting the Fever dictate that, and that kind of got in their heads a little bit as far as turnovers went. It's just something that we're going to have to wait and see in game 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. I think, we mentioned turnovers being one of the things that Tyler Marsh needs to work on immediately in practice. Number 2 on my list is shooting. Was there a lid on the rim? Like, this was so bad. 29% from the field, 22% from 3. And as we talked about in our last show, free throws, 50% from the free throw line. This was bad shooting. The Fever weren't stellar shooting, 46% from the field, 33% from 3, but those numbers felt a whole lot bigger of a difference than they look like on the paper. That this was bad shooting wise. I have so many questions about what led to this. What is going on that is making shooting so difficult? Is it just like they need to be playing their own game? Is that, they need to stop shooting? They need to shoot less? We need somebody on the coaching staff that can kind of really work with them on this. I'm not sure what it is, but this was bad, Steven.
Yeah, it wasn't what they would typically desire in terms of the efficiency. I also don't think they created the shots on volume that they look to maybe value most. And I think that they didn't necessarily have the rhythm that they desire in the half court. That speaks to the kind of margin for error that they have that I'm speaking to. Their defense can be top 5 like I'm expecting it to be, but where's their offense in relation to that? How good is their defense to playing into their offense? And kind of how many points can they chip in over the course of a per game average over the season to where it keeps them from playing in the half court so often. But specifically to the half court, you have to start with credit in the Indiana Fever before speaking to where you may have seen more to be desired from the Sky offensively. The ball pressure, picking up full court, sideline out of bounds and baseline out of bounds sometimes, mixing in zone to throw off the reads of their offense, throw off the rhythm of their game over the course of it. That just kind of adds a ton of different things to all that they're trying to work towards. And when it gets to that position and you're kind of in the mud proverbially with your offense, how can you kind of find movement? How can you find a way to stabilize things? And that's where the answer to the test is for me. Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese, putting them in the post allows for you to slow everything down When the game is too free flowing, obviously they want to play with pace, they want to play with tempo. But when things get a little bit too fast, your master reset buttons, plural, are getting the ball to those two young women and letting them work out of the post. Not always to score either, like we've talked about all preseason long, and obviously in training camp. But to slow things down, get movement from your offense, and allow for those two to play make, whether it be to one another or from the post to the perimeter, to create more set shots that catch and shoot three-point opportunity that they value most. I don't feel like their half-court offense was as organized as it will be if we have this conversation a month from now. These are just a building block type of games. Nothing to panic over. Is game 1 of 44. They will be better from it. But yes, they did leave more to be desired on offense. You have to start with looking at what the Fever did with their pressure, with their activity, with their versatility, and then look at the process for the Sky on offense. I think at some point when they get into these free frenzy type of flows with pace and tempo, they'll understand to kind of slow it down a little bit more, play through their posts, and allow for things to kind of reset. That'll keep their defense set. It'll bring the turnovers down. Those things should work in their favor.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the post presence, because it left so much to be desired. Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, you should be dominating the points in the paint. We saw really great rebounding numbers, but you should be dominating points in the paint against the Indiana Fever, against any team. Like, that is where you should be feasting, and we did not see it today. Let me read you the points in the paint's number here. So at halftime, the Fever had outscored the Sky in the paint 22-12, 10-point deficit, nothing you can't overcome just in the paint there. At the end of the game, 48-26. When your starting lineup is built around Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso, you cannot be getting outscored like that in the paint. That is what your offense is built around. That is where you should be running everything through. I don't care if you go down and miss every shot in the paint. You should at least be going down there. Like, we can't just be pulling up from three, running down the court, pulling up from three. I don't think that we're going to win any games that way. And I think that's honestly a large portion of what we saw today and why this score is so lopsided, because where was the post presence? Why were we not in the paint? That's what Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso are good at. And we just didn't see it. We saw it at the very beginning of the game. They went away from it and they never went back to it. That's why you see 48-26 points in the paint. That's too big of a deficit. You're not going to win games that way.
Yeah, I think they can get those touches in multiple ways. We've seen and detailed them setting screens or multiple screens for Camila to go from the elbow to the block, to go from the three-point line to the block, and getting her a touch as close to the paint, as close to having 1 foot in the paint as possible, and naturally also leading to the reaction that it gives from the defense. She'll probably never get a post touch where she sees one-on-one action outside of going up against maybe 3 other post defenders in the entire WNBA. That's a walk-in advantage for you in the literal sense in terms of height, but figuratively because of how a defense has to react to her getting touches where she wants the ball at. The other ways in which obviously you could throw Angel Reese in that mix too, getting those post touches. But the other one is in pick and roll, whether it's with Courtney Vandersloot, Kia Nurse, Haley Van Lith if she's in the main rotation, obviously with Ariel Atkins as well. I think there needs to be a little bit more emphasis on, if teams are playing drop coverage against their guards, finding a way to engage the big and then getting the ball on the roll to Angel Reese and Camila, where they're in the middle of the floor, whether they're getting a touch close to the free throw line, at the free throw line, or below it. That way it's not a traditional post touch, and the defense is kind of rotating to them in a sense, but it also might be coming to them in an advantage where they can, play into the paint, get up those soft touch finishes, or kick it to the second side and have the defense rotating. So that just kind of speaks to, again, just the layers that I feel like they're going to be better with, potentially even by game 2. And they're just kind of, again, just getting their feet wet in terms of building up that momentum towards what they're desiring to be playing at.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I think there's multiple ways to get those paint points, that post presence, and hopefully they focus on one, if not multiple of them in practice this week ahead of the next game on Thursday. Let's focus a little bit on Camila Cardoso. So obviously missed a big portion of last season with an injury. This is the first regular season game we've seen her in quite a while. She finished 22 minutes, 7 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and just 2 turnovers, which can compared to the rest of the Sky team actually is not bad. How did you feel about Camilla today?
She took 9 shots. That just doesn't feel like enough for me personally. Again, especially if we're talking about the context of the flow of the game, not just saying that coming into any given game, she has to take double-digit shots. Some games she might only have to take 5 and still have that impact that she has on the game with her passing, the rebounding, the defense, et cetera, et cetera. But for this matchup in particular, I think they needed to find better ways to get into their version of mismatch hunting. Aaliyah Boston is a great defender, so I'm not saying that she can just be gone directly at. But I think that because she's such a great player, if you can force her to defend a little bit more outside of pick and roll and have to deal with Camila Cardoso in the post on certain touches, I think that's a way to get her potentially in foul trouble, or at worst, just eat away at her stamina that she might have to put forth on the other end of the court when the fever on offense. So Camila she just has to have the ball in her hands a little bit more. I think this is going to be something that's going to be a work in progress for them, but I think they'll ultimately settle on some of our best offense is going to be when Camila gets it in the post, whether it be 7 touches against some opponents, whether it be 15 touches against others. She's going to be a piece that really helps to, like I said, settle things down, give them a little bit more of a different look to their offense outside of pick and roll. And it's going to be something that, again, just helps to settle everybody else down. And I think that once they get to that point, it'll help. But they need her production on offense equally as much as they do her presence on defense.
Yeah, I would have liked to see her teammates look for her a little bit more. I would have liked to see a few more players, a few more plays drawn up specifically for her. We saw Angel find her once or twice in the post, which I thought was really cool to see. Angel kind of adding to that like point forward play style. And I think, specifically finding Camilla is a really cool 2-man game there that they can develop and, move forward with. But yeah, I really would have liked to see her teammates find her more. I hope that Tyler Marsh really focuses on like, how can we get Camilla more involved in the game plan? I think also, unfortunately, a couple no calls really got to her head. You saw her kind of arguing as she was coming up the floor or, getting back on defense. I really want to see her kind of lock in on that. And I know I mentioned this in our last show, but like, I wonder how much conditioning is an issue here. She looked really good in those preseason games, but again, like the pace today was so quick. It kind of felt like she was lagging behind a little bit, which I don't blame her at all when you're coming off of an injury like she had, and you just have so much time off. So I think this is a temporary issue for her. But I do also think it's going to come down to Tyler Marsh really like making sure that he is having his players find her in the post and getting her a little bit more involved as well.
I'll say 2. She finished with 7. 2 of those 7 came within the first like 3 seconds of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's a major positive, but it also can't be that there's not much else that comes in terms of her scoring and getting those touches that we're speaking to outside of those first 2 to 3 seconds. They did this a lot last season. I spoke to it in detail with Teresa Weatherspoon. After Camila inevitably wins most, if not all, of the tip-offs, that's an advantage. It's a margin that obviously the Sky are going to be looking to take advantage of. You want to score on your first possession to set a tone and set your defense and get into that type of dictating to your opponents. Kia Nurse mixed in with all of that. Opposite of Camila at the jump ball, she kind of flows in behind where Camila's going to be running down the middle of the court, sets a back screen on Camila's matchup, who obviously just lost the jump ball. And that creates an automatic advantage, whether it's going for a pass from Courtney Vandersloot to Camila to start the game, or if the defense kind of gets a beat on it and tries to rotate over to protect Aaliyah Boston, who's guarding Camila. Now is a shooter wide open. That might be Ariel Atkins, might be Kia Nurse. It could be Angel Reese open in the mid-range or for a 3 like we saw her hit today as well. It's just so much that kind of comes from winning those marginal things over the course of a game. And there's little things like that I feel like they can also implement more in their offense, whether it's scripted in terms of a set play or if action breaks down, instead of just going to a predictable pick and roll, maybe have somebody go and set an off-script screen for Camila to then get a post touch with like 8 seconds on the clock. Now she knows she has to go to score, and she could put somebody in foul trouble, if not score and get the foul called in addition to all of that.
Yeah, getting her involved early is a really good key. Having her score that first bucket, I think was huge. And as you mentioned, a good tone setter. The first quarter was arguably the Sky's best. Not only did they score the most points in that, but they looked the best defensively. They looked the most engaged. So yeah, that getting Camilla involved is going to be key for them. And I hope we see that a little bit more. Then we get to the second quarter. I have a lot of issues with what we saw in the second quarter. This to me is where the game was lost, is in the second quarter. I think that you saw a very short rotation from Tyler Marsh. Obviously, Haley and Maddie got in at the end of the game in that kind of garbage time. But in the first half of the game, in the first 3.5 quarters, very, very short rotation. Courtney was on the floor almost the entire first half. Angel could barely sit down. This was really tough to me when we get to the second quarter and all of the players are gassed. That's when I started seeing them missing shots. That's when I would have liked to see either Haley or Maddie. Ideally, you would have Mariah Jefferson as an option as well. Unfortunately, she wasn't available today, but just try something new. Get somebody in there so that Courtney can get a rest. Get somebody in there so you can give Angel an extended rest. To me, the second quarter was really where the game was lost. And I'm curious if you felt the same way or if you felt like that rotation really wasn't an issue until later in the game.
Yeah, just kind of looking at things in that second quarter. They had 4 turnovers in the period. That's tough to concede. Now, obviously, Indiana also had 4 turnovers, but if you're talking about the controllables for the Sky and talk about some of the turnovers that we did see, you want to see them have better ball security, and that'll naturally help keep their defense more set, give themselves an opportunity to put up a shot on goal and potentially get fouled. Those are the things that you want. When you concede that transition advantage, again, it's hard to work up against, and you add that in tandem with Gainbridge Fieldhouse always rocking every time the Fever score or do something good. You want to try to play to the crowd and keep them as uninvolved with the game in terms of that type of dynamic as much as you possibly can. So they didn't really do the best job with that in that second quarter. And I feel like that second quarter took the tone that they set in the first and kind of flipped it, reversed it, and then it was kind of in favor of the Fever through the finish line. So again, if we're talking about over the course of the game, they mitigate some of those little things that'll help them in terms of the general game flow. But in addition to that, in that second quarter, one of the positives, I know there's a lot of kind of bad things to speak about, kind of things that left more to be desired. Rebecca Allen was an instant impact type of piece in that second quarter in particular. Some of the switches she was able to defend in, switching off of a help defender or help player to going to Caitlin Clark and kind of keeping her from getting a paint touch, ultimately leading to a stop. Little things like that, knocking down threes. Just making quick decisions when she gets the ball on offense, I think is as important as anything else. She brought a lot of positivity to things in a quarter that left more to be desired for the team in general.
Yeah, I thought Rebecca Allen was really strong. She brought a lot of energy onto the court, which the Sky I thought desperately needed in that second quarter. That's ideally where you would have somebody like Michaela Onyenwere come in and kind of be that spark plug. Unfortunately, she just, didn't have it today. Happens to the best of us. But thankfully, Rebecca did have it. And that was really, really great to see. I think they're going to need a lot more of that off the bench when the starters are gassed, when Courtney's, playing all those minutes. And it was really cool to see Rebecca be the person to bring that. I think Elizabeth Williams brought a little bit of that as well. I know we spoke a little bit about her, but I do want to emphasize, she was a huge positive for the Sky today. I know that the stat sheet is not going to show it. She only had 1 point, but her defense was stellar. 2 blocks, 4 fouls. Again, the stat sheet is going to not tell you what the eye test tells you with Elizabeth Williams. She was a real spark plug. And I think a lot of the players are really leaning on her for kind of that steady presence in that defense. So that was cool to see as well. I know she got in there in that second quarter. Let's dive into a little bit of Angel's game today. Obviously, when we talk about the Sky, Angel Reese's name is always synonymous with it. We saw Angel shoot a 3 today. That was really cool. I know she mentioned it at Media Day, but we got to see it in a regular season game. We also got to see some of that point forward, like I mentioned earlier. The pass where she literally turned into an NFL quarterback and launched it down the full length of the court was so cool. That was really, really strong. I'm really glad we got to see that. And I'm curious what you thought of her game today.
Yeah, Angel was she this was one of those games where it left like it was asking for someone from the Sky to just kind of put a stopgap on things in that second quarter stretch where the Fever started kind of getting things going, like we talked about. I think Angel played okay today. I think that she would even say herself though that she can find more impact, like the box score is the box score, but every time someone brings up something regarding the box score with Angel, she quickly kind of rebuts and say, yeah, but it's about the impact. And did my box score totals match the impact that I have, or did my impact leave a little bit more to be desired? And it feels like this game, it was asking for a little bit more in terms of efficiency, in terms of the shots taken, being able to make the layups, play through contact, whether the foul is called or not, and just being able to just kind of steer and kind of shift the flow of the game through those little moments, and those little moments kind of adding up over time. So just little things like that. Again, obviously there's a spotlight on today's game. Obviously, there's a lot of nonsense and discourse, but if you're actually watching the games, you'll see that impact was there, just needed more in specific pockets of it to kind of sway or shift the way that the game was kind of trending towards. I think she'll get to that point. I think naturally getting her some more touches in the post area of the court as well will help to settle the offense down, but also help to settle herself down as well. Give her a little bit less to worry about in terms of help defenders when she's around the three-point line versus when she's on the post, and then she can kind of be closer to the basket and, play a little bit more traditional power forward. Again, it's all a work in progress, though. Grant them some grace, give them a little bit of time, and they'll be where they need to be in due time.
Yeah, I think it was really cool to see Angel come out so strong in the beginning of the game. When you put yourself like in her shoes, how many eyes are on you, especially because, as you mentioned, all of the nonsense, all of the discourse. It was really cool to see that not affect her in the beginning of the game. She came out really strong. Those really nice highlight plays that we mentioned were mostly in that like first 3 quarters of the game. And I wonder how much it started to wear on her that she was kind of carrying the team a little bit throughout the game. She will never, ever admit that because Angel is a team player. All she cares about is wins. She said that many times, and I 1000% believe her that she is here to win, and that's what her focus is. But I do wonder if after a while that gets tiring. And maybe that's why she had, a little bit of a quieter second half. But at the end of the day, she still had a double-double. She had 5 turnovers. That's something to work on, and I'm sure that's something that she is going to be focusing on in practice over the next week. But I have no gripes with this game for Angel, honestly. Like, she was the bright spot for the Sky today. She looked as strong as anybody could in a 30-something point loss. Like, I'm really impressed with how she carried herself at the start of the game. I'm really impressed with how strong she looked at the start of the game. I think things just kind of start to wear on you when you see that score continue to climb up and up, and you kind of feel like you're the only one that is scoring after a certain point, because there were a lot of very long stretches where there were 8-0 runs by the Fever, or 9-0 runs, 10-0 runs. So yeah, I have no problem with Angel today, and I hope that even though they took a loss, I hope that she is encouraged by her performance and her ability to just kind of be steady at the start of the game, knowing everything that was on the line, having all of those eyes on her, and I'm sure the nerves that come with, the first game of the season. So I was impressed by Angel today.
I would say though, I think she'll be better with it, but as she has the ball in her hands as a decision maker from the helm of an offense, like when she's initiating, or if they kick it to her to start her action on the second side, I think she'll grow with it. But the ball security part, I think, is where a little bit of where the 3-on-3 game and some of the things that a player can get comfortable with in terms of not having to worry about as much help at times with certain touches in certain pockets of the court. You add 2 extra defenders to that shrinks the amount of real estate that you have to kind of work in space with your handle. I think she'll grow with that as she gets plenty more reps, which is certainly suggesting that, everything we saw in preseason and game 1 is going to be that. Where she's kind of getting picked by DeWanna Bonner and things like that. She'll be better with the ball security. I think she'll make more kind of snappy decisions with that as well. It won't be as deliberate. She'll just kind of go and use her athleticism and trust her feel to kind of lead her to whatever the next play may be, whether it be for herself or for others. I think just little things like that over the course of the game will work in her favor. And then the other thing for me is with the shot selection, just being confident in the shots that she's taking. I feel like outside of the three right now, which is growing in confidence, there's no shot on the court that she should be shy about taking. And I think that once she kind of gets a feel for where those shots come from within this context of offense that they're playing and gets more comfortable with the spots she's going to have it in and when she's going to get it, when she can anticipate it, little things like that will just kind of add up to momentum and she'll be fine.
Yeah, the ball security I think will come with time. She's, the handling the ball, being a point forward, as I continue to say, like that's new. That's not something that, she's been doing her whole career. That's a very new skill set that is going to take time to master. And I think it's completely expected that you're going to have turnovers and you're going to make mistakes when that's happening. And yeah, I think her shooting could have been better today. She was 5 of 14. I want to see her finish more. I know she wants to see herself finish more. But the Fever played good defense, and sometimes you got to tip your cap to the opponent and say, I'll be better next game. And I think this is just one of those games for Angel because 17 rebounds, an assist as well. Like this is a strong game. And I think it's all going to come with time for her. Also, like 25 minutes. She played the second most minutes on the Sky. Like that's a lot of minutes to be out there as well. Like I mentioned, there were not a lot of minutes that she was sitting on the bench in that first half. So that was a lot of time for her to be out there shooting and handling the ball and doing all of those things. So,
yeah. And the last thing I'll say too, just on the defensive end, I think that's where she will continue to provide the most value. The defense that leads to the rebounds that she ultimately grabs is better than anybody else in the W. Her ability to switch in certain scenarios is not always an outright switch. Sometimes they force defenses to, or they force our offense to certain areas or certain pockets or to try certain things, and then they kind of surprise them with the switch. And her ability to kind of hold up in those scenarios is very important. I think they can lean a little bit more into that than they did in today's game. I think if they kind of find those pockets and it can kind of be a stopgap like we keep speaking to when the team is going on a run, give them a little bit of something different to think about, give them something different to kind of have to counter to. I think those things will kind of add up to that game flow that we keep speaking to. So, again, first game of 44, they will be fine. There's no panic, just kind of speaking to where they are in their process relative to where they desire to be and kind of ways to navigate and get to where they want to be at.
Yeah. Definitely going to come with time. I do want to ask, I know we mentioned it a little bit, but I want to ask more specifically about Haley and Maddie not really getting into the game until garbage time. Let's, put ourselves in Tyler Marsh's shoes here. Would you have put them in a little bit earlier just to kind of like see if we could mix it up? Or do you think like it made sense to kind of go with the vets and try to claw back into the game?
Yeah, it made sense to go with the vets because, I mean, if you talk about the players that played the majority of the main rotation minutes, Kia Nurse, Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso, Ariel Atkins, Courtney Vandersloot, Rebecca Allen, Michaela Onyenwere, Elizabeth Williams, Rachel Benham. That's 9 players. That's a lot of players in the main rotation. Some coaches aren't even as eager to go with 9 in the first game of a season. Sometimes they play 8.5 and a player plays like maybe 7 or 8 minutes, but they kind of trust a specific group, and then other players have to work their way into that group to kind of expand the rotation. So it feels like that's what's going on right now. Also, it feels like this matchup may not have necessarily been the best for those two, especially in the very first game type of situation as well. So it remains to be seen. I think those two are WNBA ready players, but they have to kind of build up that sweat equity with getting that trust from Tyler Marsh in the regular season in particular. Don't think today was the game for that in particular, but I think they're on their way. And I think with their first opportunities in the main rotation, they'll be letting Tyler know, like, hey, you might want to try to squeeze me a couple more minutes into this game because I can make some things happen once we get into these rotations and things like that.
Yeah, I think it made sense. I understand why Tyler, went with the vets in this one. Especially as a first-time head coach, you go with the players that you can trust. You have enough wild cards, working against you in this game, and maybe you want to make sure that you can control everything going on the court without, adding some of that like rookie stress to it. I don't know. Personally, for me, like when you're down 20 and you kind of have nothing to lose and you're continuing to see that spiral, I think I would throw Haley in. I think I would throw Maddie in and just like see what happens. Maybe I think honestly I would have gone with Haley over Maddie just because Courtney had played so many minutes and Courtney really did not shoot well today. Obviously her game is so much bigger than shooting. Like she does so many things that don't show up on the stat sheet, like we spoke about with Elizabeth Williams and Rebecca Allen. But I think I would have thrown Haley in, get that spark, see what happens. Just try something new. You know, like I want to see something new when you're down 20, when you're down 25, maybe even when you're down 15, just to kind of see what happens. And I'm curious why he chose to wait. Maybe it really was just like, I know that I can trust these players. And I'm curious to see if anybody asks him about that in his post-game press conference. And I'm looking forward to watching and seeing his answer on that, because I personally think I would have thrown Haley in there. Just to kind of see what would happen. She got a quick 4 points in 4 minutes there. So maybe that's something that she could have just been that little spark plug off the bench. So hopefully we see more of both of them going forward. Because I was really impressed with both of them in preseason. Maddie especially, I thought looked really, really strong. So
yeah, I think they get to a point where both of those two players are staking some claim of relevance to the main rotation. Might only be 7 minutes. You get about 3.5 minutes a half, maybe 4 minutes a half at most. And then you kind of see what they can take as far as that game load and potentially build off of it, or it might just be kind of spotty in pockets. I think they get there in time. I think that more than anything else, though, the mental side, how sharp they are and how they process the game, how they see the game, I think those things before the skill that they're going to be bringing to the court will kind of put them in position to have success, in my opinion, once they do get that opportunity in the main rotation. So they'll get it soon, and I firmly believe that they're both ready to get after it as soon as it comes.
Yeah. So let's look ahead a little bit to Thursday, home opener against the Liberty. Very excited. I will be in attendance. Obviously, Steven is in Phoenix. What do you think is going to be the key matchup in this game, the key player in this game? What should people be looking out for as we look forward to the next game on Thursday?
In the most unsurprising fashion ever, Angel Reese. Look forward to Angel Reese going up against Breanna Stewart, because Breanna Stewart does not have the most fun when she's going up against Angel Reese. Angel can pressure her with her defense in ways that most players are not comfortable trying to put pressure on Breanna Stewart. In addition to that, most of the matchups, if they are comfortable being a little bit closer to Breanna Stewart, don't have the foot speed to kind of dominate that matchup in a one-on-one fashion, nor do they typically have the hand speed to break up the rhythm of her dribble, to break up the rhythm of a pass she might be trying to make, to break up the rhythm of a dribble handoff situation she might be trying to get into. All of those things kind of add up, and Angel's like that little kid that doesn't let go of their parents' like pants leg if they're trying to like get away from them. You just can't get away from her. She just knows how to stay attached as a defender. And when you have someone that can do that to one of the main kind of playmakers for an opposing team, that puts you in a position to be successful playing off of your defense into your offense, which has kind of been an overarching point of the conversations we've had today. That helps to set a tone for everything they're going to want to do. Needless to say, we have a whole compilation last season, preseason and regular season, of Angel picking Breanna Stewart's pocket and either taking it down court and scoring herself or passing it to a teammate in like a 2-versus-1 situation. I expect for Breanna Stewart to bring it, because I'm sure she's aware that there's few players that she even literally or figuratively seems like she struggles against. Angel is at the top of that list. And I think that especially following a game where the Chicago Sky didn't necessarily play up to the level that they desired to, Angel's going to be looking to come out and be a game buster from the tip-off in Thursday's home opener. So be looking forward to that. And then outside of that, I think there's going to be a little bit of revenge on the mind of one Courtney Vandersloot. So not going to be ill in any capacity, because obviously the result of last season was another championship for Courtney Vandersloot. However, she is going to very much be in the position of, hey, I could have did this last season. Whatever happened, but I can still play. And I'm going to let y'all know by having a crazy impact on this game as a point guard. And I think that that in tandem with Angel Reese is going to be enough for them to potentially make something happen in a surprising fashion, no different than they did last season against the New York Liberty. So those are the things I would be kind of looking out for most.
Courtney Vandersloot revenge is exactly where my brain went, so I'm glad you said it. Not against the players. I'm sure she doesn't have any ill will against her former teammates, but, maybe you want to show the GM, like, hey, I can still start in this league. And she absolutely can. So definitely looking forward to seeing Courtney against her former team. I'm curious when she gets her ring. Are they going to wait until she's in New York? Those Liberty rings look so cool. I'm excited to see her get one. But yeah, definitely looking forward to Courtney against her former team. And then, as you mentioned, Angel revenge as well. I think, she did what she could in this game, but ultimately it was a loss. And I think she's going to come out really strong in the next one, because we heard her say so many times at media day, all I care about is wins. I'm focused on winning. Winning is all I care about right now. So I think that this one is probably going to sting a little bit, and I am looking forward to seeing how strong she comes out on Thursday. Steven, any other lasting impressions, notes, nuggets before we let all these fine folks enjoy their Saturday?
Yeah, just for everything that I was seeing on Twitter over the course of the game and whatnot, and a little bit of what we've seen in the comments here. We appreciate everybody that did come through. So we'll have a few more of these throughout the regular season. So stay tuned into the CHGO Sky page regarding that. But I'm just gonna suggest a little bit of woosah. Take a moment to just kind of breathe in, inhale, and exhale. Everything's gonna be okay. It's game 1 of 44. This Chicago Sky team has a lot of new pieces, including a brand new head coach and also a brand new style of play. They will be fine. They will be fine. And in case you didn't hear me those last 2 times, they will be fine. You can kind of speak to the things that you might want to see more of. Just don't do it with the kind of a panicking style of tone, because there's no reason to panic right now. They're going to be fine. And I'm looking forward to detailing all of that with Katy and everybody else that taps in with us consistently. So happy WNBA season to everybody. I'm glad you all chose to bring it in with us, and we're looking forward to providing coverage unique from anybody else in Chicago on the Chicago Sky team going into 2025.
I think I needed that breathing exercise, honestly, because not only because this is just, it's debut day and there's a lot going on, but also, I have a lot of thoughts, and I was very concerned after this game. So that felt good. Everybody take a deep breath. And we will not have a post-game show for Thursday. As I mentioned, I'll be there doing some post-game press conferences and stuff, so we won't be able to get live for a post-game, but still follow that CHGO Sports account on Twitter and on Instagram. We have an Instagram account, you guys. That's new. That's awesome. Hit the like button on this nice stream. If not for myself and for Steven, then do it for our great producer, Sean. And we will talk to you guys very soon. Enjoy your Saturday. Happy WNBA season.
We all silly like the mayor.